It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obiuchendu. Thanks a lot for joining us. Happy Eid al-Fitr to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. We're celebrating the end of Ramadan. It's been a very long month, very unusual Ramadan as well, considering the circumstances around the world this time. And of course, Salah has been celebrated, but probably in a muted way, considering that people are not supposed to be seen to celebrate anything these days, or if you celebrate in very small numbers with family or with technology now, which is what a lot of people are starting to do. So there's a lot, of course, still happening with regards to COVID-19. The numbers across the country are continuing to rise. We've crossed the 7,000 mark with regards to number of infections across Nigeria. Lagos still continues to lead the numbers, and but government seems to, at this point, not want to go back to the lockdown state of things. There's now more emphasis on sort of controlling or giving people responsibility to care for themselves. And we'll be touching on that a little later to see how effective that will be in the long run. Of course, businesses are also still affected. Many of them are still not open yet. There's those who are probably never going to open again, considering the loss of revenue that's come with these last couple of months and the lockdown and just the lack of business activity. We're going to be starting off talk, with Ramadan and, of course, the unusual Eid celebrations today. And I'm joined now by Anto Leki, who I want to believe is celebrating in her own way, hopefully at home. Anto, can you hear me? How are you doing?
Yes, I can hear you, Ebuka. Hi.
Happy Eid al-Fitr. How are you celebrating, considering that times are a little stranger than normal?
It is pretty strange. Even for me, it's, at least on this day, this is the day you'll go and see your family members. You probably would have traveled to the village maybe a few days prior to, but I've been in Lekki ever since, and I'm not leaving anytime soon. So yes, it's definitely pretty strange, but I think, this is a prayerful time, so Muslims are just continuing to stay in prayer and just hoping for the best and hoping that soon this entire COVID-19 situation will be over and we can get back outside.
I mean, Ramadan, the month of Ramadan is usually a time for sober reflection. It is just sort of trying to get reborn, especially spiritually. So some might argue that with the circumstances that we found ourselves in the last month plus, it was probably for the good because, you had no other option but to sit and reflect. How different was it with Ramadan this time?
For me, I think it was a little bit easier because I had less distractions. When you're outside with your friends and they're eating and they're talking about whatever is when you kind of want to eat as well. But when you're at home and you haven't started cooking dinner, you don't really have to worry about eating. So for me, it was a little bit easier. But I do think that for other people who are used to going outside and dealing with people, interacting with people, is definitely difficult because you're used to blending in Ramadan with your daily activities. But this time, there are really no daily activities. We're indoors.
I want to talk about giving because it's also a huge part of Ramadan, and that involves, interacting with the poor or the needy, people around you who deserve, to be given or be helped. How did that work out this time, considering that, contact is almost completely discouraged by government, everybody knows that right now. It's one thing you shouldn't be doing is touching anyone. So how was the giving side of things? How did that work with a lot of people in the month of Ramadan?
Yes. For me, luckily, we have Instagram and we have Twitter and we have platforms where people can just promote whatever kind of foundation they're supporting, and you can just use your wonderful banking apps and send money across. So for me, this time, it was easier for me. I just sent money to various foundations. Anytime I saw like a post of a foundation asking for money, I just sent money. That was the easiest way for me to help. And I also was able to send money to my village. I realized that during this COVID-19, while the rest of us are kind of indoors, other people are not exactly indoors. So I was able to send down money to my village, and they were able to organize some, some stimulus packages. But of course, I reminded them to try their best to do social distancing. But it's kind of scary because they're really not doing it. So it just made you realize that was definitely an added prayer during Ramadan. Of course, you pray for your family, your friends, yourself, your colleagues, whomever. But I definitely prayed for the world because we're definitely in some tough times right now.
And most importantly, I believe, is the shutdown of the mosques.
Yeah.
it would be unthinkable in the past to say you go through Ramadan and you didn't go to the mosque for once. I mean, a lot of
Yes.
Christians found it very particularly hard during Lent as well, leading up to Easter, and it was a very strange time. And how hard was it, and how were people able to still stay spiritual through that?
I think it's just a reminder, especially this time. I think for me, this Ramadan was more special because it's a reminder that your religion is yours. Our religious buildings are just buildings that you can still practice your religion from the comfort of your home. So, of course, there's some people who are used to praying in the mosque. Some people spend the last 10 days in the mosque. But I think that as long as you're a believer, no matter where you're saying that prayer, it will truly be answered.
So, how are you celebrating today? I know you mentioned that earlier. Is technology playing a part in all of the? I know Zoom, House Party, all of these apps have become very popular. Is it something you're exploring? Is it something that does it make you feel a little easier using those?
Definitely, there's more I think this time I've received way more phone calls. More people that I probably wouldn't have even talked to before. They're kind of reaching out more because everyone is just in this time of knowing that we need more support. So of course we're doing more phone calls, more video calls. For me, I'm at home, so I'm cooking. I'm also ordering foods. I'm just gonna have my own Eid feast to myself.
So, all of the, I know this is not the Salah where the ram is killed, I believe.
No,
Even
it's
though
not. It's
we
not.
never seem to know which one it is, because every time we ask for a ram, they say it's not the Salah. But you said you're going to have a feast unto yourself. I mean, people are going to probably, have massive feasts. And I also just kind of wonder, how is the sharing side of things going to work? I know a lot of people are going to deliver stuff and all, but are you looking at that as also a hindrance to celebrating, maybe?
Of course, because you definitely expect, to visit people. Most Eids, you'd at least visit someone, and then along your way, you probably would have given some, tokens of food or what have you to people along the road. So I know there's definitely people who will be missing out on that experience, that feeling of, giving. But I think everyone should just try that you can give without being physical. Of course, there's ways to donate, and it's just I think the best kind of charity is your kindness, your prayers. So you don't always have to give a physical gift. I think just being a good person and praying for people is a great gift as well.
And on a final note now, what's the big lesson you probably learned this time? I mean, when you fast, when you go through a spiritual journey, there's always a lesson. But this one has to be different, isn't it?
It is very different. Usually during pandemics, they don't really reach you. They don't feel so close to home. But we definitely, I think at least one person at least knows someone, even if it's just a social media colleague. You kind of know someone who has been hit by this virus. So it just made you want to be way more prayerful and way more appreciative of your life. There's some people who had no idea that the one day they went outside was the day they were going to catch this virus. So it just makes you want to be more prayerful and appreciative of everything that you have.
Well, thank you very much, Anto. All the best. Enjoy yourself today, even if we can't seem to get any of your feasting. And make sure you do stay safe, all right? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm going to switch the conversation a bit now, and I'm joined here in the studio now by Temitope Kolade, who is a tax analyst. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Happy Eid. Supposed to be a public holiday, I believe, in the coming days, I think tomorrow and next.
Yeah.
But people are sick of holidays at this point, I believe.
Apparently.
I think we've been at home for 2+ months, give or take, depending on where you are in the country. How are these holidays, which are still going to have to happen anyways, going to affect businesses, because people are still trying to get back into the groove of things, and now we'll have another 2 days where we still have to stay home. There are people who are saying, do we still need any more holidays this year? What do you think about that?
Whether we need more holidays this year, I would say we don't, because if businesses are supposed to do very well, we know that we've got to work very hard to ensure that things get back to normal for the rest of the year, if they would get back to normal at the least. Already we know that the aviation industry is grounded completely. The hospitality sector of the economy is also grounded. Nobody is staying in the hotels. So when you think about it, really, by the time we think we're getting out of this, that's when we'll probably be picking up the pieces, the crumbles, and that'll be no time for holidays.
Yeah. Speaking of, tax, and a lot of countries have tried to implement, sort of palliative measures, especially for small businesses, because they have been probably the most affected by all of this. You find that, like I said at the top of the show, a lot of businesses probably will never open up again because they couldn't survive 2 months without any revenue. People are being laid off left, right, and center. There was a whole statistic I saw earlier today, or yesterday about the aviation industry, which is probably the most hit, like you said. A lot of people have cut thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of staff, But for small businesses, and Nigeria is basically run by small businesses, whether I would like it or not. Yes, the big banks and other companies are there, but the average Nigerian is doing business, is trading, and there doesn't seem to be a feeling that they're going to be helped in the long run. What are you getting from that?
Now, I'll step back a bit and say, are the small businesses the only ones that have been affected by the situation at hand? And the big answer to that is a capital no. And the reason is this: the multinationals are also affected. Think about the oil industry, for instance. At the beginning of the year, the government had estimated that a barrel of oil would be sold for $57 per barrel. But so today, the budget is being revised to $25 per barrel. Yeah. That means the oil sector has been impacted as well. And if you think about the fact that that's the mainstay for Nigeria's economy, it's then a big deal for us. Yeah, if you think about small business, informal sector, and you think about the fact that they are the ones that do most of these things, and they're the ones that run the business, again, you step back and say, how much taxes do they pay? Because there is a big debate about how the informal sector is not really being taxed. So most of the taxes that we see collected as at today in Nigeria is coming from the multinationals, from the big companies, and there are various categories of taxes, by the way. You talk about the transaction taxes based on the transactions, such as the value-added tax. You talk about the income tax that comes at the end of the year when you have done all of your transaction. And that's to say whether you have profit or not, then we come realize and say, let's see whether you have taxes to pay. If you're in a loss position, then there is no tax to pay. So if there are transaction taxes, for instance, and you see what the Finance Act 2019, for instance, did for the informal sector, that's have less than 25 million transactions for a year, is that they don't even have to pay VAT, for instance. They don't even have to account for VAT. So at the moment, in terms of the contribution of that sector to tax collection in Nigeria, there is not so much.
So you talk about the big organizations now, and even I think in the United States, there's even a lot of tax breaks that have been discussed with regards to a lot of this manufacturing, especially because they employ bulk of the labor there. Is that something that you think we should be looking at here? Because people are saying, it always seems like this 7.5 increase in tax, basically, is now looks so ill-timed because it came on right before the pandemic broke out.
Well, let's start with talking about the 7.5 VAT. And what I would say is that it's not exactly ill-timed. And the reason is this. If you think about it, it's when the government also came with that increase in VAT, what they tried to do was to exempt certain things that are essential products, essential items. For instance, basic food items are exempt from VAT completely. Baby products are exempted. So when you look at that, you would say, hey, really, people should still be able to feed, people should still be able to do basic things without necessarily having to incur that additional tax. So it's more on the big transactions, the transactions that maybe they are not exactly essential, but they are important for the economy to run as well. And people would have to engage in those transactions for us to have an economy that is going. Yeah. Now, flip it back and see what the US has done or what other developed countries have done. You then need to look at the funding model for Nigeria and think about the fact that we have the non-oil, the oil sector, and of course, borrowings or debts that help to fund the activities of the economy. If oil have been badly hit, you think about non-oil, which is basically tax and custom duties and maybe funds or levies by ministries, agencies, and departments. You then left with really nothing. You left with borrowing. Back in 2012, when the Paris Club and the London Club waived debt for Nigeria, we came to about $4.1 billion of debt. But as of today, as at the last quarter of 2019, we had hit $27 billion. Now, the IMF just said giving us another $3.5 billion. So we're going over $30 billion. So when we then think about the revenue to debt ratio of Nigeria, revenue to debt ratio is bad for us. So indeed, if you're going to fund the economy, if you're going to move forward, tax still have to be collected. The question would then be who pays the tax? And it has to be businesses that are doing well, definitely. So if businesses are not doing well, all of the stakeholders, the businesses, the government have to sit together and ensure that the business do well, or the businesses do well, such that there is tax to collect, because it's a circular flow and there has to be an equilibrium.
All right. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, we'll look at the possibilities of... okay, well, let's go on. I want to talk about personal income tax now, because it's human beings who are affected, ultimately. Yes, businesses are affected, but human beings are ultimately the ones who are feeling the pain. Is there any possibility that that could be considered, looking at the Nigerian who pays tax and saying, okay, for a certain period? Because I think a few Scandinavian countries are doing that, where they're giving 3-4 months break. Say, okay, you know what, no charges, no taxes on anything you're earning until a certain... maybe when the economy starts to look healthy again.
Yeah, nothing is really impossible. It's possible to say we're waiving personal income tax. But again, you ask yourself, when we waive that, how will the government be funded? Yes. If you look at the Lagos state government, for instance, and you say how much is being collected in taxes, it's probably the best of all. If you look at the recent reports, you see that Lagos state government has IGR of about 400 billion naira, rather. Yes. Not even up to 1 trillion. And then you think about other states that are doing as low as 8 billion naira. So that's a far cry. Yeah, annually. And that's really not good for us. Okay. And you see that the states are basically, because again, personal income tax goes to the states. And so the states still go cap in hand every month to the federal government. So if you say, don't collect taxes at all anymore, it will then be like you want to ground everything, and we'll be living on borrowings altogether as a nation.
So you think the emphasis is more on the fact that government needs these funds to sort of trigger the economy much more than the individual?
Yeah, they need it. And then the individuals, as long as they continue to earn, should be able to pay some tax. Because again, if you don't earn, you can't pay taxes. But if you earn, you should be able to pay a bit for the income to be redistributed, because that's one of the tools that tax serves for us, is a redistribution. So some people earn so much. And the personal income tax is a graduated scale, for instance. So it's really the much that you earn. For instance, if you earn 1 million, probably you have to pay about 200,000 naira as tax. So if you earn just 100,000 naira, you pay, it's proportional, so to speak. So you don't have to pay much more than you have to really, much more than you have earned. Yeah. So I would say, when you earn, still pay that much and let it be redistributed, because you need to think about the vulnerable, those who don't even have at all, those who don't earn at all, those who are not employed at all.
Something you said, touched on earlier that I want to come back to a bit. You talked about oil prices and how, it's whether we like it or not, it's what it's our oil. Yeah. Literally. Yeah. In Nigeria is what we run on. And a lot of the companies here, the multinationals, how do we work around having them to still be here to do business healthily after a pandemic like this, and the government still being able to earn from the revenue that oil, however meager it still is, I guess my question is it possible for these multinationals to stay here and not get a tax break and still do well? In the oil sector?
Very possible,
because most people won't be... I know a lot of Nigerians see the oil sector as this one place where they should never be helped.
Yeah, very, very possible for them to not to get help and still stay. Yeah. And it's a question of, why do companies diversify? Why do they divest? Why do they have to leave the country? If you think about a company like a Shell, for instance, they've been thinking about...
you know what? Let's go on a break. When we come back, we'll expand on that and much more. Talking about taxes and businesses in Nigeria in the COVID-19 era. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. Before the break, I was talking with Temi Tokwekolade, and we're talking about the oil industry and tax exemptions, and you were going to say?
Yeah, I was saying, when you think about a Shell, for instance, for a number of years now, they've been trying to diversify from just oil and gas to power. And which sector of power now is the renewable subsector. Yeah. So that's one thing they've been trying to do. And if you think about the fact that businesses would not just stop running, they will, when they want to divest, it takes a while. So they're not going to say because things are not fine right now, they're going to then just drop the ball and leave. So they have to be in it for a while. The question would then be, there are other projects in the pipeline. Are they ready to take those projects forward because of the situation of things? Because the assumptions, the underlying assumptions as at the time they were getting into those projects are failing and they're changing. So that's the point where there is a need to sit back with all of the stakeholders, the shareholders of the company, and say, hey, can we continue this way? And of course, the government then needs to think about, do we need to give them some tax break? Do we need to reduce the tax rate for them? Government is thinking about some marginal bid rounds that will be coming up soon. And when people get into marginal bids, they have to pay its 5% tax on whatever revenue. So that means there is, say, a 15% that is left, and that's not exactly so because there are other deductions. So do we still keep it at 85%, or is there a way to redesign the tax system for that kind of field such that people are still profitable here and they're still interested in doing business?
We're going to continue the tax conversation because whenever I talk tax, like I told you when we're off air, my chest gets tight. But I'm still a good citizen. We're going to come back to you. But let's switch the conversation a bit. And I'm being joined now by Victor Ibiye, who's a comedian. Victor, can you hear me? How are you doing?
Yes, boss. I'm good. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you. Before we go on, do you pay tax? I'm putting you right on the spot.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
How are you doing?
Time, to be honest, in case rapture happens tomorrow. I'm very good, boss. I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
How are you coping in these times? Because it's been very tough, especially for people in the creative industry who need an audience every time to perform. I mean, for people like you who are online, it's a little easier. But how are you coping on your own?
Honestly speaking, it's not been easy because I also host weddings. I host weddings, I host birthdays, I host events, and due to this pandemic, I mean, we can't really gather, so it's really affecting us. So, please, government should come to our aid.
So when you say government should come to your aid,
I don't know if I say my account number. At least government pay us to do skits to make. To tell people about coronavirus.
Yeah. But how much can government do, though? Because the truth is that these are very, very weird times. And virtually every business sector is affected. I mean, I know we've seen a lot of other countries where there seems to be trillions of dollars being allocated for a stimulus plan. I don't know what the plan is for Nigeria, but what can government do for, not just comedy now, the entertainment industry?
Yeah. I feel the government should, have more investment in entertainment. I mean, if you look at it, a lot of comedians are talented, but you need investment to move to a certain level in your career. Sometimes you're just stuck on a point, but sometimes with financial assistance from the government and departments that work in that line, things can get better.
Are skits easier now that you're locked down and you have time to think up new material? Is it easier or is it harder since you're not interacting with people?
I think it's harder. It's actually harder because you need to interact with people. Someone like me, I don't know what's funny. I don't know what's. I just do skits. But most of the time when I'm with my friends or I'm with people, I can test my material with them. And when I get laughs, I'm like, okay, this one is funny. Okay, this one is not that funny. But when we can't gather, we can't interact as much like before. It's killing a lot. But then again, as a creative, I mean, something can still come out of this situation. So there's always a diamond in every rough.
Oh, it seems like there's even more pressure to bring out new material every day because everybody's at home waiting to see what's funny and what's not.
Yeah, I said it last week. I after this corona, everybody's career is restarting. Only God still has his career. Everybody's starting again.
Talking about the online space now, there are people who are, and I think I had real worry picking on the show some time ago, and I was talking about people. A lot of people are trying to keep themselves busy on the one hand, but also find new ways of making money. How easy is it to get into this online space? Whether it's as a comedian, we see things like TikTok now, where everybody is suddenly becoming an actor. How easy is it to get into that space and thrive?
I think if you ask me, it's a blessing and a curse. It's easy as well as hard. There are a lot of people. I mean, everyone has the liberty, the freedom to like pick up your phone, record a skit, or say something funny, or make people laugh, make people engage, be an influencer. But keeping up, consistency is key, because now it's a space where there are so many people. It's like a market in China where you can't really recognize everybody, but like you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
So consistency also helps, and I think that's where the work is. Staying updated. It's like everything on the internet expires after 24 hours. And then you start again the next day. So
yeah. So I want to ask you about, you have gotten in trouble a few times, with a lot of your material.
Yes,
when was the last time you got in trouble, first of all? Because it feels like it's become quite often.
It's not easy.
How do you do some of these things on purpose? Because there are people who believe that sometimes controversy sells. You try to make jokes that might be insensitive, then it goes viral, and people realize, oh, this guy is still here. Isn't it true that sometimes these are just for the sake of the clicks?
No, that's not what it is for me. That's not what it is for me. So basically, I see the online space as my stage. I see the online space as my platform, and I feel if that's my stage and that's my platform, then I should be as creative as I should. But in the past, I mean, I've not really measured my kind of content, and I had some backlash, and I learned from it, and it has made me a better person, online.
Have you, though? So, yeah. How are you able to bounce back from stuff like that? Because you find that there are people who get cancelled that get cancelled forever. We've seen that happen, especially with the cancel culture that's happening now. How is it that you're able to, get into trouble, people call you out, and you're still in the game?
I think I'd like to say, because I'm genuinely funny. It's not really about the trends of cancel him. If you still have something to offer, I mean, they will still laugh.
Yeah.
They'll still laugh. It's Nigeria. They'll still laugh. So if you do something, people always like to feel, especially Twitter, people always like to feel like they have power, they have control, but they don't really. But like if you let it get into, like, for example, honestly speaking, the first time it happened to me, I felt bad. I let it get to me. But after it happened, I was like, okay, I'm as popular as those stubborn students in class that were always being punished. So next. So if you have that mentality and you still keep going, I mean, people will as well forget that and move on.
Yeah. So one of your colleagues was almost cancelled completely. He had this controversy about, testing with the NCDC and whether he had the virus or not. And there was all of this drama about whether he was playing pranks and all of that. What did you think about that?
So I saw that happen, and I think where he actually made a mistake was actually saying sorry. He said sorry, and I mean that gave the Twitter community more power to trample on him or act like they could trample on him. But as I said earlier, he's not cancelled. He's still doing it. He's still
So you don't think he should have apologized for what he did?
I feel if he was if it was an act, then why are we apologizing for an act? If he was joking, then it's a joke. He doesn't need to say, oh, sorry for the joke. It was a joke. If he was paid to do that in a movie, he'll do it. So I feel Instagram is his platform, it's his stage.
But didn't you see how it could have been seen as an expensive joke at the time?
Yes, actually. But that's where it comes to how you can pass your message across as a comedian, because in a sensitive world like this, him now saying this is an example to some NSC, the company, the people that are handling the corona thing. I've seen cases where people actually call them and they actually don't pick. So it can also be a wake-up call to the health parastatals that are in charge of making sure people can actually call smoothly and get attended to when they detect the virus. So it can go sideways if he knows how to do it. Only a few comedians have been able to do it, really. It's not an easy thing.
Would you do that?
Yes, I would. I would try to. With what I've learned right now, I would try to blend it in such a way that...
Without caring how people would react to it?
Um, if I was to do it this year, I won't really care. I don't like at this point. I don't really. I mean, it's just people saying what they feel. People every day people insult presidents of countries and nothing happens. So I don't think I'm that important that people will be on my case for a while, for a long time like that. So when you say your message, know how to pass the message across nicely and
Fair enough. Well, before we go now, what's the plan? I mean, there's a lot of talk about the fact that this might not be going away anytime soon. We don't know if there might be any events up until the last quarter of this year, if at all. What is the plan for ABA?
Right now, I had a proper plan, but Corona has divided my plan into two. So for now, I have a movie that's meant to be out in a bit. And I want to do more movies, more stand-up comedy, and a little more skits. I have a movie on Netflix. It's called Payday. It's doing so well. Just more things like that. More movies, more laughs, longer laughs, a more mature kind of comedy.
Yeah, and the business side of things.
Yeah, business side of things. Right now, I don't think anyone has bookings except you're influencing online. So. Yeah, a couple of influencing, post this, post that online, but nothing standard, nothing solid, So please, if you need me to MC your virtual wedding, I'm available. Anybody.
So, how do you think this pandemic is going to change the industry? Yes, hopefully we get a vaccine. Things might get back to some semblance of normalcy. But how do you think this is going to change the industry in the long run, especially with how technology has come into play? What do you think is going to happen?
On the industry right now, I mean, it depends on the industry. The comedy industry, comedians are still going online, going harder online. But it's still going to affect. It's still going to. A lot of people have become more lazy this period. Before when life was back at normal, everyone was up on their toes. But right now we're working from home. We're doing things from home. Things are more relaxed. So it tends to make people a bit more lazy, reduce productivity. But I feel once things get back in normal, we'll be able to match up. But if it's for this year, just know that there's not much money in circulation this year.
I know I said we're going to go earlier, but I just remembered something. Because I know we had said earlier about how you've got into trouble a few times. Are there any of them that you particularly regret?
Yes.
Or you just felt that people were just making noise for nothing?
I feel the first one, the Aramide one, that was the one that hit me the most. And I mean, I regretted that one.
Did you apologize to her?
Life is always there. Yes, I did. I think when I even apologized, it got worse. And then I think I just apologized to her, but I put it out like a public apology and then reached out to her later. And, I regret saying that. And I'm happy it happened at that point of my life, not when my career is on his, rounding off.
And the joke about Lupita?
Yeah, the joke about Lupita, I didn't apologize for that because, I mean, it was just a joke. I'm sure Lupita would laugh if I told her.
Are you sure she would? Because, I mean, a lot of people, it came across as you shaming the color of her skin, which is why a lot of people had a problem with it.
Yeah, but if I had the opportunity to explain my jokes, which I don't think I like to do, I'll say I'm not white, I'm black as well. So it won't make any logical sense for me to throw shade at someone of the same color. I was just making a joke. It's just like when you tease your friend or something like that. That was how I saw it. And the moment I realized that was the online space was my platform, I really don't need to apologize. When I apologize for that, then he now sees. But if Lupita tells me personally that she didn't like it, then I owe her an apology, and not the people, not the audience. The audience will always be two-sided. I saw people that loved it.
But the joke was about Lupita, but you had an audience. So the joke was about Lupita, but it was for your audience.
Yes, it was.
So your audience was offended, but you still don't think it was wrong?
Not the 100% population of my audience, not everyone. People laughed. People said this was wrong. So if I throw out an apology, it will not sit well, because there were two sides of the coin. I was just joking, actually.
Of course, you were joking, but which is why I mean, a joke is a joke, but there's jokes that are insensitive, or sensitive, which is the point, isn't it?
Yes.
You didn't think it was insensitive?
Yes.
Or it was a sensitive joke you were telling?
I feel if Lupita tells me it was insensitive, then I will apologize, because she's subject matter. And if you ask me, I also say it's like, I'm just joking. It's just a joke. So I mean, it's just a joke.
Okay.
Comedians should actually be cut some slack, just a little slack. I mean, people will never, all over the world.
I get you on that, but there's also a reason why there are certain things there's also a reason why there's boundaries for certain things, which is why, as a comedian, you can make jokes, but can you make jokes about race? Can you make jokes about rape? There are certain things that you would definitely not cross a line on. So, which is why I think you were called out when it came to someone's skin color.
Yeah.
But you're saying you don't think once it's a joke, it's a joke.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, ABA. And
you
want to say something?
So basically, like, that's a joke that I wouldn't still try, even if I'm saying it's a joke. That's a joke I wouldn't still try again. That's a joke I seeing. Like, I learned, that was the first time that was happening to me, and that, like, having that kind of topic of backlash, and like, I wouldn't try it again. But like, it doesn't, like, if it was said as a stand-up joke, I don't think it would have been that bad. But I think there's something about typing on social media and tweeting things and how people read it. I think that's what happened there.
So besides the fact that you shamed her color, there was also kind of a sexual tone to the joke, which was the two sides to it, right? Still talking about the Lupita issue now.
Sexual.
But you're still saying. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you have mentioned oral sex, which was what the joke was about. So on the two sides, there were undertones of insensitivity.
If that's what it's called, then no problem. But like, I genuinely, like, I wish we could have our heart on our forehead.
Yeah.
I wish we could have our heart on our forehead. I genuinely didn't mean it that way. If Lupita tells me she was offended, then I'm genuinely sorry. But like, I didn't throw it out that way.
Otherwise, you're not.
People insult, yeah. I'm not too, like, to.
Please stay safe.
Thank you so much.
Stay safe. And all the
best.
Yes,
boss, I will. Yes, boss. All right, thank you, boss.
We're going to take a break now and come back and continue our conversation on tax and much more. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. I still have Temitope here. I want to switch conversations, but before we go to that, a very quick question to you, which has been a raging debate for a lot of people around the world even. What do you think should take priority now? I mean, we're 2, 3, 4 months into this pandemic, depending on what country you're in. People are trying to open back the economy. I know it's a hard place to put you, but people's safety and the health of the economy, what should be paramount?
You're trying to set me up. But I'll stay with the fact that there is this old saying that health is wealth. Yeah. So if you don't have the health, how are you going to make the money? Yeah. How are you going to survive after all? So, but again, if you think about the fact that to retain your health, you need food, you need all of the things, you need the health infrastructure to be in place, and you need money to fund that, then it will be a case of finding the right balance and finding a way to reopen the economy gradually and try to, of course, leverage on digitalization, leverage on how you can do things remotely without necessarily having physical contact.
Okay. Thanks for saving yourself. But I've been joined by Dr. Ramon Moronkola, who is the consultant and the secretary of the Nigerian Medical Association, Lagos. You're welcome. Your association in the Lagos chapter declared a stay-at-home during the past week, and it was eventually called off. A lot of people thought it was mighty insensitive. Explain to us why we got there.
Okay, well, actually, a day before the strike was declared, allow me to start by thank you for bringing me on this show and giving me an opportunity to address this issue. And we've had a lot of questions relating to this, even during when the issue of sit-at-home was the order of sit-at-home was given to our members. So a day before the order was given, most health workers they closed from work. They were leaving for their houses, and those that were going to work to resume duties were not allowed to move. They were detained by the police, and in fact, there was an issue of ambulance conveying a sick person that was also detained. And when this issue came up, we looked at it and analyzed it. We had a brief consultation, and we looked at it that it is safer for us to ask our members to sit at home, pending when we have a clear instruction, a clear directive on what exactly the government wants to do with health care workers. We're not mindful of the fact that the president of the nation, through the presidential task force, gave a directive that the essential workers, which included the healthcare workers, were exempted for any form of restriction during this issue of lockdown or curfew. What was quite surprising that night was harrowing experience for members. In fact, there was a case of a threat to life. One of our members was threatened with gun. So at that point, we looked at it. People, despite the fact that our members have been bending over backwards to ensure that services were rendered in one of the most unconducive situations, at that point, even if you have the intention of going to offer services, you are prevented from getting to work. At the same time, you are exposing yourself to risk. So we looked at it. It make a lot of sense for us to ask our members to sit at home, and most people ended up agreeing with us. And if you look at it, the directive wasn't an immediate sit at home directive. Our members were told to start sit at home from 6 p.m. of the next day, which means we had expected that maybe the government, the police, would have responded within that time. Though there was a lot of reach out, however, we couldn't conclude the matter before the 6 p.m. when the stay-at-home directive commenced.
So just
however,
so just to be clear,
okay,
I mean,
let me allow you.
The sit-at-home order came because healthcare workers were being harassed with regards to the curfew that the government imposed. And, first of all, ID cards didn't count with security operatives. And secondly, don't you think the sit-at-home was a little too extreme a reaction to give to that?
Okay, fine. In addressing your question, I may pose another question to you. So if we are saying we don't have enough, we have a very low workforce to patient ratio, and we are saying in the face of danger, because we are saying people must attend to patients, we see our members should be exposed. Imagine we lose one or two doctors or nurses during that process. Will such person be able to offer services going forward? So it was a doctrine of necessity. We knew it was a difficult call. However, you observe that immediately we're able to get something tangible from the government. We immediately issue a counter order within 24 hours, in fact, less than 24 hours. So that shows that the real intention was not to punish the patient or the citizens, but to get a clear directive from the government on what exactly the healthcare workers should hold on to. Is it that they are exempted from the lockdown or they are permitted? Just imagine you left your house, you had an emergency, and that actually happened on that day. A consultant was called to see an emergency in a hospital. He left his house. He was trapped on the road. The police didn't allow him to go. They threatened him. He was there almost throughout the night. So how do you balance that? You understand what I'm saying? So even if you, in that situation, even if you want to offer services and you are prevented from getting to where the service will be offered, it's as good as saying at home. So it's better we clarify and ensure the fact that we say doctors and nurses and other healthcare workers should offer services should be humane. It doesn't mean, in fact, part of our Hippocratic oath states that our health and our life should also be taken seriously. So the fact that we want people to offer services, we want them that is a humanitarian call, doesn't mean that we should unnecessarily expose our members to danger. So
what's
as I said earlier,
the state of things now? What's the state of things now? And how do you guarantee safety of the members now that you've called it off?
So, well, like I said earlier, within 24 hours, we received the police reached out. The governor, the Lagos State governor, played a lot of role. The executive governor of Lagos State, Mr. Badi Sanwo-Olu, played a lot of role in ensuring that we get enough commitment from the police force, which we think is reassuring. The reality is that one cannot say if the police are assured that they will comply with the directive of the Presidential Task Force. All we can do is just to accept. In fact, this was also given in writing. So we had a written commitment from the police. So I think any essential worker going forward can even have a copy of that, including journalists. So if you're harassed by police on the road, all you need to do is to show them this is coming from your force, which has shown that we are exempted. However, we've had pockets of harassment here and there. And it's heartwarming in the past that the leadership of the police force have been forthcoming in those situations where we had a lot of harassment by the men of the police force. When the leadership were contacted, they acted appropriately. So we think that we can take them for their word. We can hold on to what they have written and the assurance given. And the reality is that the police and the healthcare workers have always been working in tandem in the time past. In fact, you know, there are situations where an accident victim is brought in by the police. They have to work with the doctors. There are situations where maybe gunshot injury is brought to the hospital. The hospital will have to also inform the police. So these are two people that can't afford to work in different directions. We can't afford to have issues. So I think it is resolved, and we want to hold on to the assurance that's been given by the top echelons of the Nigerian police force, and also the executive arm of our government. They've reached out. In fact, the South has also intervened. I think.
Thank you very much.
We hope that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramon Moronkola, and hopefully we don't get to this situation again. And thank you for all the good work you and your members are doing in these very trying times. And of course, thank you very much to Temitope for hanging out with us. And we'll be having more conversations with him so that we can understand how we can do better with our taxes.
Thank you very much.
Going forward. Thanks for being here today. Like I always say, you can follow the conversation on Twitter. Rubbin Minds Now is the handle. Please use the hashtag Rubbin Minds when you tweet at us. I'll see you next Sunday.